Hello, everyone. Welcome to Aptera Owners Club. 3 days ago, Aptera announced this on their news that Brian Snow, who is the managing general partner of Impala Ventures, which is a venture capital firm, joined as a strategic advisor and investor and joined its board of directors. So the first thing I wanted to know was who is on Aptera's board of directors? And I went over the internet, and the only thing I could find was this WeFunder page. And as of 2019, there were only two members of the board of directors, Chris Anthony and Steve Fambro. And I couldn't find anything else, so I believe now that means that Brian Snow is the third member of the board of directors. I didn't see any announcements of any other board of directors. So then I wanted to know, like, if this was a big deal or not, that they got a venture capital firm. So I looked at this, and it looks like for large venture capital firms, and I suspect that Impala Ventures is a small venture capital firm. But basically, there are lots of startups looking for money. And in general, this is how the venture capital game works, is out of 3,000 applications, the venture capital firm will look at about 200 seriously, and they'll fund about 20. So that means that 0.7% of all the applications that a venture capital firm, on average, will get funded. So that means that Aptera made it into this 0.7%. So that's big. They made it out of a pool of thousands down to a pool of 20 or so. So then I looked up the website for Impala Ventures, and it looks like this Brian Snow gentleman has a lot of experience in real estate and real estate tech. And so a lot of their portfolio is in the real estate space. And they're very interested in like clean technology, climate solutions, that kind of stuff, which fits very well with Aptera. But so I went through their portfolio, and here's their portfolio. There is some company called Flume Water, which helps people manage their water usage through a device that is Wi-Fi connected to their water meter. It's really a great idea because I see a bunch of people in my neighborhood who have like broken sprinkler heads and they're just leaking water all over the place. And they just don't know because the water prices aren't very high around where I live. And so they may just think that, you know, that their water bill's a little bit higher, but they don't really know why. And something like this would help them do it. This is Flume's website, and I guess they have this little device that hooks into their water meter, and there's an app for your phone, and you can see when you have water usage, when you shouldn't have been having water usage, and you can detect leaks and get notified. So great product. I really like it. So it looks like they did Series A funding of this company back in 2021, last year. So what are the series? I didn't really know what series meant. What happens is there's several rounds of funding, and there is this thing called seed funding, which is very early on in a um, startup's career, and this is also can be called angel investing. And it's usually friends, family, incubators, some venture capital firms, and the founders put in some money. And this is very, usually they raise a few $1 million to just kind of get the ball rolling. The next is Series A funding, and then you can go on to Series B funding, which is even like more advanced and raise even more money. But at every series, the company has to prove itself a little more. And Aptera is in Series A funding because if you look here, they list Aptera Motors and they said Series A 2022, which is, just now, which we just started. And if you look at their other portfolio, this is some kind of data management company. This is a real estate company that measures occupancy and customer engagement to keep track of like your office space. This is Hygienica, which is a company that keeps your facilities clean with some antiviral cleaning mechanisms, I guess. They invested in this probably because of COVID, made this thing very attractive. This is some modern workspace software for hybrid, for like for people that like companies that work partially remotely and partially in-house. This is another workforce housing, fertilizer company, workflow and space optimization. So a lot of real estate, because that's the background that Brian Snow has. This was very interesting. And this is Zero Avia. It is a company that is looking at hydrogen fuel cell powertrains for airplanes. And he invested in this in 2018, so pretty early. And like industrial cleaning robots, that's sort of related to real estate, smart restroom and cleaning technology, and another water technology and another real estate company. So and this is a healthcare environmental services company. So bunch of kind of real estate related ventures. The two ventures that are very similar were this Zero Avia and Aptera. This is Zero Avia's website, and they basically have a fuel cell device that runs a prop for small planes. And if you look at them, I scrolled down. This is their group. This is their advisory board. And then this is their board of directors. And if you look, these are their investors. So I try to look for Impala Ventures in here. They're not listed. There's no Impala Ventures. But they have a bunch of big names in here. Amazon invested in them, British Airways, Alaska Airlines, Shell. Yeah, a bunch of big names have invested in them. So they're kind of a fairly successful startup. They have not delivered any product. If you look at their timeline, they're thinking that in 2024 they're going to start having small planes. So they're a ways away. So they haven't made any money or delivered any products yet either. They're just still prototyping and research development. But a lot of big names have invested in them. So Aptera's in Series A funding. I was a little confused because I thought it was Series B, but actually I looked back at their SEC filing and they're talking about Class B stock. So this is still Series A. It's unclear if Impala Ventures is paying $8.80 a share to get in there. I suspect not. I suspect he gets a much better deal, and he gets on the board of directors. And that's kind of the thing when venture capital firms come in the picture. The founders have to give up some equity, give them a seat on the board of directors. Generally, they get some kind of controlling interest, and they have some say in how the business gets run. And we know that Aptera started their Series A back last year. And this is the WeFunder round when Sandy Munro was in the Series A. And then they've raised about $40 million through the investments of the crowdfunding that a lot of us are involved in. Again, I suspect Impala Ventures got a better deal than us, and that's usually the case when you're investing millions of dollars. You can kind of say more. This is Brian Snow's angel investor page, and he lists again Zero Avia that he invested in 2018, although they don't list him. So I wasn't real sure what's going on there. But then I found this, which was an early Zero Avia presentation back from 2019, and indeed they do list Brian Snow here of Impala Ventures as their advisory board. So he did. It does look like he invested. He invested a small amount of his own money back in 2018. And then Amazon invested in them back in 2020. And this was probably a very large investment. So he's probably doing, there's no return on investment on the Zero Avia yet. And if you look at the way that venture capital firms work, generally, of the 200 funds that are funded by top VCs, about 15 of them will generate nearly all the economic return. So the rate of return isn't very high. Most of these will limp along, and then many of them will completely fail. And so the odds of success of a funded company, according to this thing, is about 8%. So to get funded by a venture capital firm is less than 1%. But even after you get funded, the chances of ultimate success are fairly low. So it's still a risky business. It's 8%. Now, venture capital firms, they expect the vast majority of the companies that they invest in to fail. But they're hoping that like 1 out of 5 or 1 out of 6 are going to make it big and make up all the losses that they have. The other thing I found was there's this thing called PitchBook that talks about various startups. And if you look at Aptera, they give you a lot of, if you buy their thing, they give you a lot more information, but you can see their comparisons. This obviously is a comparison with Archimoto with Eugene, Oregon. And here's Archimoto right here. They have, they tell you which patents they're looking for. They've abandoned a few patents and they're working on this system for solar cells. If you look, this is their executive team: Steve, Chris, Janie's son Burlingame, which we've talked about, Nathan Armstrong, he's done a lot of webinars, and Sarah Hardwick we're all pretty familiar with as the chief marketing officer. Then I noticed that there was this venture capital firm which got in pretty early called Cloud Toronto, and I'd never heard of them before. And I think they got in pretty early, and they don't have a seat in the board of directors. So I think it was like a seed money. I looked into them. This is Cloud Toronto's venture capital portfolio, and they have some big names. Like some of these I've never heard of. Palantir, yep, heard of them. Robinhood, we've all heard of them. SpaceX, 23andMe, that's a big one. Ripple, we've heard of them. Udemy, heard of them. Impossible Foods. So these people have made some great investments. Pet Pound, and I was thinking, where is Aptera coming in here? I didn't know. If this, then that. Imperfect Foods, some pharmacy company, LoadSmart. And there it is. They did invest in Aptera, right here. So indeed, this Impala Ventures is not the first venture capital firm to invest in Aptera. 2 venture capital firms have invested in Aptera. So I think that's good. To me, as a small investor, it's reassuring to me that large investors that are venture capital firms, who have people that really look at these things carefully before they decide to invest millions of their own money into it, have decided to invest in Aptera as well. So I think that's reassuring to me. And looking at the odds of success of these venture capital firms, just to make it from thousands down to, the teens is really an achievement by Aptera. And I'm hoping that they're one of the 8% that succeed. So I think this is good news. They're headed in the right direction. They've got Sarah Burlingame, who is a specialist in SPACs and IPO, and so she's working on that as their CFO. They've got a guy who's been relatively successful as head of Impala Ventures. He's joined their board of directors, and he ran some very successful companies, admittedly not in the automotive space or manufacturing space, but more in the real estate space. But he did run some very successful businesses. And this Cloud Toronto venture capital firm, who's invested in a lot of very successful companies, they also invested in Aptera pretty early. So I think that's all very good news for us. And definitely is good that they're getting some interest from venture capitals. And the next thing, I think once they get enough venture capital money to go into production, hopefully this year sometime they will go into IPO sometime this year or maybe next year, and then all of us who invested will hopefully make a little off of our investment, and more importantly, hopefully we'll get our car. So if you guys have any comments or know more about venture capital and how that works, comment below. Thanks for watching.